When the weather kicks up, the Coast Guard dives into action. Rescuers move fast to save a woman fighting for her life.
She's unconscious for unknown reasons.
A child suffers from seizures in a remote Alaskan village.
There's a heightened sense of urgency that you need to get this child to a higher level of care hospital.
And on the Bering Sea, a waterlogged boat calls for help as time is running out.
Are the seas going to roll them over? Or is it going to tip their life raft? You just don't know these things.
The vast Alaskan wilderness, a place where beauty is cloaked by danger. Here, every day, 350 highly trained men and women risk their lives to save others. America's deadliest waters are protected by Coast Guard Alaska.
So here's the updated coordinates. 57 and 134, so it'd be like we're in this area.
48, so yeah, they're about there. About 60 miles.
I'm SK3 Foster. About 16:36, we got a call from D17. We're gonna have a medevac of a 53-year-old female on a cruise ship, the Norwegian Pearl. She's unconscious for unknown reasons.
Sector 30, request use of gear guard at this time. We are on deck at Air Station Sitka.
Our helo was already doing local trainer flights, so they came in and picked up the doc, Captain White, and then they got back airborne. It should be about a 30-minute transit from the cruise ship.
We were told that the patient was unresponsive. That could mean a lot of different things. Was she unresponsive to pain? Was she unresponsive to voice? Did she move? Did she have a good airway? Did she have a gag reflex? There's a lot of things that we didn't really know.
I wouldn't mind having a little bit more information. I'd like to get a recent set of vital signs, her current mental status, and assessment of her airway.
Having the flight surgeon on board is a great help, not knowing what exactly is wrong with this lady. And we're gonna have her at a semi-high level of care, being that we have a flight surgeon on board, and he can begin his treatment as soon as she comes into the cabin.
Coast Guard 6030, sector, be advised that all body vitals are normal. Now copy.
Got that, Doc? I copy. Waiting for mental status and airway.
No respiratory distress. Her mental status is unresponsive.
We were given the impression that she had a complication due to an internal medical problem that was treatable, but I didn't know the extent of it and how severe it was at that point.
Did you have an updated position on the cruise ship? They're going south. Yep.
They're going away from Juneau now, aren't
Yeah.
As we're about to arrive on scene, we find out that they're heading south down Chatham Strait at a relatively quick pace.
I'm going to talk to the Norwegian Pearl real quick. Norwegian Pearl, Coast Guard helicopter 6030. It's about 5 to 6 minutes out right now. And we will be hoisting the patient from the stern of the vessel. The helicopter hoist will take place from midship, starboard side. Or that's going to give you a full-on tailwind with them underway. That's no good.
We would be backing down in a hover and accepting tailwinds and power margins that wouldn't allow us to do the hoist.
We have you in sight now. What is your current speed? 21.6 knots. We are unable to hoist off your starboard side at your current speed. Request to know if there's an alternate location to do the hoist, and if not, we're going to have you come to all stop. Yeah, let me check here with the crew, and we'll see if we can come up with an alternative. Over.
As we come on scene to the cruise ship, we're trying to decide on a suitable place to hoist to. It is a very large and stable platform, but in this situation, they were going about 21 knots against the wind, and we needed to be slowed way down.
Coast Guard helicopter, Norwegian Pearl. We will come to a stop for you. That's good copy. We appreciate it. Coming up to 10 knots, still slowing. Patient is being moved to the evacuation site, midship, starboard side.
Once we decided on a suitable platform and where we were going to hoist from, I got David White on his gunner's belt and begin our evolution to put him down on the cruise ship to get the patient packaged and retrieved.
Go ahead and begin the hoist.
And
Begin the hoist, have target in sight. Low check and swimmer. Easy forward and right. Easy right and hold. Swimmer is away, swimmer is okay.
When I got on scene and saw the patient, she was in distress. She had altered mental status. She had a look in her face like you could tell something was wrong with her.
Just gonna put the litter down, and then once we do that, when we go to retrieve the litter, he'll hook the trail line up then. And litter is coming to the cabin door, sir. Okay.
The most challenging part was getting her strapped into the litter because she didn't want to be restrained. She was kind of fighting us getting her strapped in. She was able to get a hand free. You don't want to strap them in too tight, but you don't want them to squirm their way out.
Actually got her in the litter. Okay. Station's ready. I've got the ready for pickup signal, sir. Roger. Hoist hooky is on its way down, sir. Okay. Easy right, fair to take a load. Take a load. Hold position. Position, litter's bringing in the cabin here.
As I'm hoisting the survivor up in the litter, as soon as I put my hand on the litter to straighten it out, it was like she kind of came to and was very combative. She didn't know where she was at, what was going on.
And she's gonna be coming to the cabin door, sir. Okay. Doc, when I was bringing her up here, I got her to the door and she punched me in the face.
I have no clue what it would be like and how scary that would be to wake up and here you are hanging below a helicopter and not know what is going on. Some guy in a big orange suit's reaching down to grab you. I can understand the combativeness and I can just kind of empathize with her that she was going through a very hard time.
Rescue check complete for a bear hook recovery of the rescue swimmer. Good. Chief command. Roger. Swimmer is at the door, coming inside. Hoist is complete.
Here, check on 43. Norwegian plural, Coast Guard helicopter 6030. So we got patient on board. Hope you have a good cruise.
Thanks a lot, guys.
She's not going to want to keep that mask on. I'm not going to try to fight her and put on anything on her face. It's probably going to be okay without the oxygen, but I just want to make sure we monitor it.
Okay.
I looked at her immediately trying to assess how deep her unresponsiveness is, and it turns out that she was able to move all her limbs just fine. She was a little bit feisty at the time, understandable, but she was breathing without any labored breaths, and so the most important goal is ensuring that she doesn't worsen in flight, and so being prepared for possible complications to her condition.
Yeah, just go tickle her feet a little bit, see if she moves them around too. She moving them around?
Yeah.
Once we got the patient in the cabin, the flight surgeon went to work on her and told me what he needed from me. It was my second duty day in Alaska, and you don't want to screw up. You want to get out there and help somebody.
Who's ready for approach?
Ready for approach, sir.
Everything worked out for this lady today, and we got her back to Sitka and got her to the hospital. Being that this was Dave's first SAR case in Alaska, it was a moment that we would share.
You ready? Ready.
Stories we could tell for years that we were together on his first SAR case in Alaska, and you could just see how happy he was. Our crew had worked together, and we'd saved this lady and got her back to Sitka.
About 2:30 in the morning, I heard this piercing alarm go off, which was reportedly a 31-year-old male on a crab vessel that was vomiting blood.
I banned off TCQ is safe. The more blood he loses, the worse off he gets, so.
There's not a lot that I can do to stop the bleeding. Dehydration, it kills people.
Looks like the subject's on deck there. Hold position.
My name is David White. I'm at AST-3 here in Air Station Sitka, getting ready to go spear fishing today. The native Alaskans would use the spear, something similar to this. This is a spear we made in survival training. Using something a little more advanced today, using a spear gun. This is a gun you can actually get in the water with. You can dive down and shoot the fish with. Well, the water temperature is usually in the mid to low 50s, so it's cold water, but we have thick wetsuits that we wear, and you can get about half an hour to 45 minutes in the water before you get real cold. So there's plenty of time to shoot some fish. The spear guns are long, like a big long rifle, but you shoot them like a pistol underwater. They're really accurate. Just takes practice like anything else. Once I learned I was getting stationed here in Alaska, I was really excited because I get back into spearfishing. The zen of spearfishing for me is just slowing my heart rate way down, going down deep. Once you get in the water and start diving down, it opens up to a whole nother world, and it's just a good time.
Coleman on the ICS yet? Yes, sir. Got the details? All I know is this gentleman that is passing blood, vomiting, I guess. Yeah, so he's been doing it for about 12 hours, so he's probably pretty dehydrated. So you might get to poke somebody tonight. Awesome, that's always fun. Don't miss.
My name's Lieutenant Tony Lumpkin. I'm an H-60 pilot, and about 2:30 in the morning, I heard this piercing alarm go off, which was reportedly a 31-year-old male on a crab vessel that was bleeding profusely through the stomach, was vomiting blood.
We know it's a 112-foot vessel. What's the name of our vessel again? We're going to the fishing vessel Cape Caution. What's the name of the place? Off of Chignik.
Chignik Lake is just about 200 miles. The weather wasn't too bad, which was actually worked out very well for us. This is a medical case. This is urgent. We're going with a little bit more speed than normal.
This is going to go down one of two ways. Either Guardian is going to come meet us at Sandpoint, take this guy to Anchorage, or we're going to bring him back with us. Roger.
My name is David Call. I'm an HS3 here in Kodiak, Alaska. Well, usually with a GI bleed, something inside the stomach. So there's not a lot that I can do to stop the bleeding. So the most important thing is to make sure that he's hydrated. Dehydration, it kills people. And a lot of people don't realize it until it's too late.
At the boat side, guys. We had door speed? Yes, we're getting a sense.
We got right over the boat just as the sun started rising. It was kind of the pinky time in between nighttime and daytime. We got in radio contact with the vessel. At that point in time, the captain relayed the patient's condition. Sounded like the patient had gotten worse. So at that point in time, we know we really needed to get the patient to the hospital as fast as possible.
Having doors open. We're coming through 500 feet. Nice open deck in the area there. Yeah, man, we could put a tank in there. Looks like the subject's on deck there. Nick, do you prefer to go down there and assess this guy, or if I talk to the captain and they're able to help him into the basket, you just want to open the basket and scoop him up? Yeah, if they can get him in there. As long as we don't think it's going to hurt the patient at all. Roger. All right, actually we're into a basket to the center working deck of the Cape Caution there, hoisting altitude to be 60 feet initially. We'll adjust as we go in.
Talking to the captain, we did find out the patient was ambulatory, which means he was able to walk under some assistance from a crew member, but enough to where we did not need to lower a rescue swimmer on board to help package the patient for the hoist. And that way they could just put the patient into the basket and complete the hoist as fast as possible.
Forward 70. Forward 10. Forward 5. Basket is going down. Basket is on deck. Hold position. Position and altitude are good. Survivors getting in the basket. Survivors inside the basket. Are they ready for pickup signal? Hold position. Survivors clear the vessel. Clear to move back to left 30. Survivors right below cabin door. Survivors coming inside cabin.
AMT2, Nick Davenport.
As the basket came up to the door, I noticed he was in pretty bad shape. He had a tough time getting out of the basket. He was shaking really bad. You could tell he was severely dehydrated, pale.
You're gonna lay him on the floor though, right? It would be easier if he can sit.
He had vomited several times, and it had been over a 12-hour period that this had been going on, so he had lost quite a significant amount of blood. He was very lethargic and wasn't really aware of what was going on. Just his pupils alone made me kind of stop and be like, all right, this guy's really not doing that great.
Hey, Mike, sit up. Try to relax, okay?
We got the call at 4:30. The 32-year-old male was coughing up blood on the grabbing boat.
Picnic Lake is just about 200 miles. This is a medical case. This is urgent. On the way back to Kodiak, the patient was pretty weak. He was obviously pretty distraught, pretty sick.
Hey, Mike, sit up. Try to relax, okay? Keep looking straight ahead. Straight ahead, don't look at the light. Focus stowed. Close the cabin door, ready for forward flight. How are you doing on fuel, sir? As of right now, got plenty of gas. The weather's looking good. Is the plane to go back to Kodiak then? How bad off do you think he is, Dave? The more blood he loses, the worse off he gets, so. Roger. My plan is to bring him back to Kodiak. That might expedite things.
So because we expedited the hoist, I didn't have to stop and have to get fuel and shut down for an hour. With the patient on board, we were able to depart the scene and get back to Air Station Kodiak to medical care as soon as possible.
You're definitely going up and over, that's for sure. Roger that. Can you tell me what's going on with you? You've been throwing up blood? All right. It's not the first time this has happened? All right. I'm gonna give you an IV. I don't want you moving around or pulling or anything, all right?
So once we picked him up and knew that we were having to go all the way back to Kodiak, that's when I had to start thinking at least 2 to 3 steps ahead of what might happen. In the back of my mind, I was thinking, all right, if this guy passes out, what am I gonna do? Or if this guy starts throwing up more, what am I gonna do? If, all these different scenarios I had to run through my head while also taking care of the patient.
All right, so you're just gonna relax your arm right there. There we go, all right.
If I didn't get an IV started and fluids into him, his condition and state would probably definitely deteriorated during that 2-hour flight back.
Looks like we're good.
When he had taken about a bag and a half of IV fluid, it helped his state of mind come back from totally unable to focus, not really aware of what was going on, to being able to respond. His pupils came back to normal. So the fluids definitely helped him.
Ready for approach. Ready for approach? That was a very quick hoist. Good job, everyone. Yeah, very good. That was very quick and efficient.
Between when we first got him in and dropped him off, there's 100% change in his mental status. He was able to respond. He was able to use full sentences. And that's all we can really do is try to make sure that they're doing better when we drop them off than when we picked them up.
All in all, it was good. Saved a life, and our job is to take someone who, they're really at the end of the rope. There's really no one else to call, no one else that can help them out. So we're pretty much the last line of defense for them. So to be able to take that person out of peril and put them where they need to be, where they can get the care that they need, that's what we do, and it's very satisfying to be able to do that.
So we're going? Yep. 18-month-old, post-seizures. You briefed up with Doc, you guys? You know what we're talking about? Because yes, sir. I've established that all they do is wiggle sticks up front.
My name is Lieutenant Chris Enixon. I'm a H-60 aircraft commander here at Sitka, Alaska. We have a child that has a high fever and has been having seizures throughout the night. So we're getting an air crew together for an early morning launch to get up to Angoon to medevac that child.
So, weather is like what we just had come through. It's throughout the area. So, like I said, we're gonna be real safe, slow, pick up through Carroll. Worst comes to worst, we'll bail out Salisbury, go back down around south. Plan right now is come back here. If weather is so horrible that we can't make it, if it's clear shot into Juneau, we're going to Juneau. Any other questions? Go do good things.
When you hear that it's a child, 18 months being so young, myself as a father and everybody else that's on the crew that has kids, there's a heightened sense of urgency knowing that a high temperature is going to cause them to seize again, and we need to kind of control that.
All right, so they're under tow, taking on the water. There's a basket accessible, go south.
When you hear the phrase vessel taking on water, when that's the call out, especially up in Alaska, you really move as fast as you can because the elements can be so severe that your survival time is not really that high.
Flight controls, torques are checked. And that's a good check. Just port ready forward, ready aft. Ready aft, sir. And go bound, and go bound.
My name is Chris Belisle. I'm a Coast Guard rescue swimmer at Air Station Sitka in Southeast Alaska. So we just got word that we have an 18-month-old infant with febrile seizures, meaning he has a fever that's so high that it's causing him to seize.
And air from 3-4. We're taking off at this time, 06 POB. We're off to do good.
Since this is a medevac, and it could be a pretty serious medevac, we're actually going to bring ourselves a corpsman or an HS. And what they are is they're a health service technician, and they fly with us as backup for medical cases. When you hear that it's a child, 18 months being so young, myself as a father and everybody else that's on the crew that has kids, there's a heightened sense of urgency that you need to get this child to a higher level of care hospital immediately.
Report ready for approach. Ready for approach, sir.
My name is Petty Officer Dennison. I'm an avionics electrical technician, second class, stationed at Air Station Sitka. So as we come in, I calm the aircraft down.
Tone order is clear of the trees, easy down.
We get safely on deck and disembark the rescue swimmer and the corpsman. They make their way to the ambulance to meet the child and package the child up to be brought back to us and to be taken to the hospital. I go to the ambulance to help the rescue swimmer and the corpsman bring the child to the aircraft and getting the father in the aircraft too, who has to come with us.
By talking to the nurse, we found out that the child is definitely stable now. And in fact, probably doing way better than it was in the night. They just took its temperature and he was down to around 99 degrees, which for me, that's really good because it's bringing him back down to a normal temperature. So all we had to do was maintain that, knowing that a high temperature is going to cause him to seize again, and we need to kind of control that.
You guys all sit in the back? Yes, sir. All right, guys, we're going to come straight up, nose it over once we get over the trees, and we'll be en route.
Mike, let's get BP cuff on him. Roger that. I'll get out the heat cuff. Yep.
The main purpose of what we need to do now is to start hooking up most of our equipment. We need to get an O2 saturation, which is a little sticker that we put on his toe. And what it reads is how well his blood is moving oxygen through his body. And then the most important thing that we have to do for something like this, do nothing. The he's stable, so there's really nothing that we need to do or poke and prod that you could aggravate him, and especially on an 18-month-old in the back of a helicopter. It couldn't be really nerve-wracking.
Talk to Dad. Just tell him that everything's good. Let him know that he's doing real fine. His O2 saturation is probably above normal. Just talk to him and nice and calm. Right? Just let him know what's going on. 'Cause he's staring at us.
One of the most important things that we need to do on any of these cases is exude calmness. You know, remaining calm in that world of chaos is it kind of brings the level of tension down.
Doesn't feel too warm now, at least. Still warm, but not bad. Hey, Chris, what do you think it was? Dehydration or something like that, or?
No, just child fever. He said last night around, yeah, he just had a fever and he was real cranky. And they tried to give him a bottle around, say, 2 o'clock or so, and he just wouldn't take it. And then very shortly after that, he started seizing. Report ready for approach.
Ready for approach, sir.
We made our landing into Sitka, and I could see that the ambulance was on deck waiting for us. In this case, the patient was stable enough that we could take the extra 5 minutes to shut the helicopter down. It provides a safer and better transfer, and it gives the medical personnel a good opportunity to pass information about the patient.
Hey, bud. Looking good. Hi, guys. Hi, how you doing? So we got an 18-month-old, 2 o'clock last night. Started kind of whining and crying, a little colicky. They tried to give him a bottle, and then pretty shortly afterwards, he started seizing. They gave him some acetaminophen just before we took off. Temperature's been really good. Yeah, okay. Do you have IV access? Yeah.
Yes, there's IV access in the right ear.
Okay. But he's doing really good, and he just woke up.
All right, buddy, here we go. We're gonna go for another little ride.
The child's vitals were really stable the whole way home. I mean, it was almost picture perfect. It's kind of nice that when we're done with this case that you kind of look around and realizing that by 10 o'clock in the morning, we've just saved an 18-month-old infant. One, that's why I joined and that's why I want to do this. And two, that I actually get to and I get paid to do that. So yeah, it's a wonderful feeling in the morning. You know, now it's time for coffee.
My name is Andrew Kukash. I live in Rangoon, Alaska. It's an island. You gotta only get there by boat or plane. Look at that. The Coast Guard is a very, very big help, especially in an emergency like this. Weather changes quick on us, and apparently when they're getting ready to send them out, the weather wasn't that great. They wanted a team with them to take care of them on the way over, and the only one that was qualified was the Coast Guard. To the air crew that came to help my family, I thank you guys with the bottom of my heart. Thanks for coming out and helping my son.
Do you think we should go check out that helicopter over there? I bet you do, yeah. So today we got some kids coming over from the elementary school. We're gonna give them a tour of the base, the helicopters, and then we've got some other things that we have set up. We have a basket set up where we're gonna actually be able to get the kids into the basket, and then we'll have them hoisted up on a little hoist that we have set up separate from the helicopter. So they get the experience of getting hoisted into a helicopter. And then after that, we'll be able to let them see a helicopter take off, maybe even talk to them on the radio.
No, no more.
We'll come down.
Slow down.
My name is Caitlin Crawford, and I'm an early childhood teacher at Baranoff Elementary. Our goal from this trip is just to teach them about different ways that you can get around, and a helicopter's a pretty cool way to do that. It's a great way to get language out and get them talking about, you know, how we move and things going up and down, and it's big or small, and just learning basic concepts in a fun way.
To go fly, this goes forward to make you go faster, and back to make you go slower. And this way goes right, and that way goes left, and this makes you go up and down. And this makes you spin to the right, and that makes you spin to the left. See, now, you don't need to know about all that stuff. Coast Guard and community at Sitka, we play a large role. You know, we do a lot of things with the community, and the schools, you know, all of our kids go to the same schools, and it's a small school district. And it's nice to have the kids come to the air station, and they get to see the helicopters and the machinery, and get to see what some of the parents of these children do for a living. And it's a good experience to be able to pass that along to the kids of the community.
Ready for takeoff?
Always ready.
Yeah. Always ready.
Super proud.
It was a great experience for all of us. It was a lot of fun. I know the kids will be talking about it for weeks to come. They had a great time and their eyes were huge, so we can't wait to get back and talk about it, maybe make a thank you note for Chris and Brooks.
Does anyone want to talk to the helicopter on the radio?
Have a good flight.
Thank you.
We have a report of a boat taking on water, and it's taking on a lot of water. It's flooding rapidly.
Stars going down, stars below the cabin.
We know that time is of the essence because we're not going to leave scene until they're safe.
Station, Hut 10, Hut. Commanding Officer, Coast Guard Air Station Sitka, arriving.
I'm Commander Doug Cameron, the Commanding Officer of Coast Guard Air Station Sitka, and today is the change of command. So we'll be swapping over from me to Commander Ward Sandlin to be the new CO of the air station. This command for me has been the culmination of everything I've hoped for my entire career. I love aviation in the Coast Guard. I love Alaska. It's a chance to be in command in Alaska. There's only 2 air stations up here. Everybody wants them. I was lucky enough to get one of them. And so for me, this is as good as it gets. From Commander, Coast Guard Personnel Command, to Commander Cameron, U.S. Coast Guard. Subject orders, new assignment. Detach from Coast Guard Air Station Sitka on 16 May 2012 and report to the 5th Coast Guard District, Portsmouth, Virginia, for assignment to duty as Chief Incident Management. I'm hoping for great challenges as my career moves on, and I will do my best, but I'm confident as I look back that this will be the tour that really resonates with me.
Ladies and gentlemen, Commander Sandlin will now read his orders.
Detach from Coast Guard Air Station Clearwater and report to Coast Guard Air Station Sitka, Alaska on 16 May 2012 for assignment as Commanding Officer.
As we get on the stage and exchange salutes, which is the actual transfer of authority from me to him, there's a lump in my throat. You know, this has been an amazing time for me, and it's something I don't want to let go of. But I know my time is over and it's time to move on.
Retire the colors. Hand salute. Commanding Officer, Air Station Sitka, departing.
My name is Commander Ward Sandlin. I'm the new Commanding Officer at Coast Guard Air Station Sitka. Prior to this, I was the Operations Officer at Coast Guard Air Station Clearwater, Florida, a large unit for the Coast Guard. Huge difference in the weather. The weather up here in Alaska, obviously, is really probably one of the biggest challenges we face. So it's going to be a big challenge to make that adjustment.
Commander, U.S. Coast Guard, departing.
I've had my last flight now in Alaska, and that's really hard. I always wanted to be a commanding officer, but the key for me is being an aviator in the Coast Guard, and I know that chapter is now closing. And so it was really hard to leave that behind and to know that my days of flying in the beautiful Alaskan AOR are over.
Rescue 6038. Request you take a guard at this time. We are en route to Sarkay. Our ETA is 1515 Zulu. Over.
David White, AST-3, rescue swimmer at Air Station Sitka. The alarm went off about 5:30 in the morning, woke the crew up. It was a vessel taking on water, and could tell by the watchstander's voice it was real.
All right, so they're 100 tow taking on the water. We got 2 pumps. Got the basket accessible. It's going to go south.
That might make it interesting to get a pump down to them, depending on how they got that tow set up.
Definitely. It's a 30-foot vessel being towed by a 45-foot vessel in the vicinity of Surge Bay. We were told there's 2 persons on board each vessel. What else are you guys thinking? Any concerns or anything we haven't addressed?
I was wondering what the mast and the rigging looks like.
My name is Ward Sandlin. I'm Commander in the Coast Guard. I'm the Commanding Officer at Air Station Sitka. When you hear the phrase vessel taking on water, when that's the call out, especially up in Alaska, you move with a lot of alacrity and you really move as fast as you can because the water up here is so cold and the elements can be so severe, you know, the seas and everything else, that really your survival time is not really that high.
If we're going to send down a pump, I'd like to go down with it because some of them are a pain to get started.
I think we'll have to assess the situation. If a little hesitant to put you down on a boat that's sinking, you probably just want to get in the water and push the boat all the way to Juneau, don't you?
Guys, we got a little bit of reduced visibility up ahead. It looks like one of these isolated showers. Still able to see through it. I'm going to go ahead and come down to 5 feet.
Anytime you're doing a SAR case, you look at the weather, and that's especially up here a huge factor. Can we even get to the place where we need to be? It's also a factor for the survivors. What's the sea state doing? How is that going to affect the boat taking on water? How is it going to affect anybody who gets in the water and has to try to survive in it? Are the seas going to roll them over? Or is it going to tip their life raft? You just don't know these things.
I wonder if they have a pump on board and they're looking for a second pump, or if they don't have a pump at all and they're just got a little bilge pump and bailing by hand.
I was thinking about calling them on 16 and just seeing if we could raise them, and then we can start asking them those questions. Vessel Silverwind, Coast Guard, Rescue Helicopter 6038, Channel 16, over.
Yeah, Coast Guard Hilo, the Sharon 2 is tied up next to the Silverland.
There's two boats side by side there. Maybe that might be inside, though. Standing by for door speed. Good door. Hey, talk to that. Doors open.
I'm Mark Newkirk. I'm an AET2, Avionics Electrical Technician, 2nd class. I'm a flight mech here at Air Station Sitka. So when we got on scene, we found them really quickly. The biggest problem is there's 2 fishing trawlers, and they've got their booms sticking out on each side. They have bait shacks, and they have masts everywhere, so there isn't a lot of room to hoist to on a 30-foot boat that's covered in riggings.
Vessel Silverwind, Coast Guard, Rescue Helicopter 6038, Channel 16, over.
That might be inside, though.
Doors open.
We have a report of a boat taking on water, and it's taking on a lot of water. It's flooding rapidly. They're in a cove 45 miles to the north, and there was a boat tied up next to the boat in distress.
All right, Chad, we'll be with you shortly here. We're going to set up and get ready to put a dewatering pump down to you. Yeah, you're ready to hoist, I understand. All right, Mark, you all set? Roger, rescue checklist complete, ready for 1. Indirect deployment of the dewatering pump. All right, I got the target in sight. We're going to the white boat, correct? That is correct. Target sight at 3 o'clock. You can begin the hoist. Roger, target sight, beginning the hoist. Trail line's going outside the cabin door. Trail line's going down. Trail line's going down.
In cases like this, your best option is usually to do what we call an indirect delivery of the pump. In an indirect delivery, you deliver a trail line to the back of the boat.
And trail line's on deck. You're clear, move easy back left. Trail line's on deck. Staying out trail line.
And you basically tie the end of the trail line to the pump can.
Bring the pump to the cabin door.
Push the pump into the water.
And you can free the pump. Roger, deploying pump.
And allow the crewman to pull it hand over hand and to basically pull the pump in that way. That limits the amount of time that you're over the boat. That limits the amount of rotor wash you're putting on, and it actually keeps the aircrew safer because you're not spending all your time hovering next to all that rigging.
Pumps on board. Sharon 2 from Coast Guard Helicopter. If you have trouble starting that, let us know. We have a rescue swimmer on board who we could put in the water, and you could swim over and help start that pump if we need it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Looks like they got the can opener and they're working on the pump. Sector 6038, that's on scene with the vessel and pump delivered.
Now that we have the pump on the boat, we're watching the crew try to get it started, and we see that they're having a difficult time.
Yeah, Coast Guard, the engine's running, but it's not pumping.
Yeah, they need help. Okay.
We know that time is kind of the essence because we're not going to leave scene until they're safe.
Yeah, Coast Guard, we're really going to shut the pump off. It's not working. Yeah, it's running, but it ain't pumping.
Good copy there, Captain. We're going to sit down our rescue swimmer to you in just a moment.
When the captain came on the radio and said he couldn't start the pump, we decided to deliver me to the water, and I'll swim up and try and get the pump started. I put on my fins and my mask, and we decided to do a harness deployment.
Roger, rescue check is complete, ready for 1 harness deployment of the rescue swimmer to the water, astern the vessel from 50 feet. Swimmer's going up and outside the cabin door for a load check. Load check, swimmer. Load check complete, swimmer's going down. Swimmer's going down, swimmer's below the cabin. Copy in. Roger, forward and right 40, forward and right 35.
When they lowered me down in the water, I just unclip, give the OK signal, and then swim to the boat. Pulled myself on the boat, climbed on, took my fins off, and started looking at the pump. I could tell right away several problems. The gas can wasn't hooked up. and the suction hose was not in the water. I was able to direct the crew, tell them what I needed, and then I was able, with 3 pulls, to get it started. And at that point, it started dewatering. Did its job really good.
Oh, yeah, there it goes.
Hey, good. He's got it going.
Nice. That's why we pay him. 3-8 swimmer, the pump's running good. The crew knows how to work it now. That can be picked up.
Good copy. And whenever you're ready, we'll pick you up from the water.
When all the elements come together and everybody does their job right, you're able to look back and say, you know, we really made a difference in somebody's life. We really made a difference today. That's a great feeling.
Great swimmer inside the cabin.
Anything that we do here at Air Station Sitka involves teamwork, especially in aviation. There's no one person on that helicopter who's doing the mission, who's carrying the load. It's definitely a team effort.
You're awesome. No, Dave, you're awesome. We should drink some beers tonight. No, we should.
I didn't realize not drinking beer was an option.
I'm a commercial fisherman, Andy Keller, have an FE Silver Lance. I don't know, about midnight, noticed I was taking on a little water. My pumps totally failed. At that point, I woke up my deckhand and we started passing buckets of water and obviously couldn't keep up. I realized we were getting close to the rocks because we were drifting that night, so I called for help. You know, the U.S. Coast Guard, you always call them, and they were there to pull us out of the water if we had to get in. Got real close. I'm actually surprised that we saved it. That boat goes down, I lose everything. There goes my way of making a living. There goes most of the stuff I own. You know, there's a lot of things at stake. We are all very appreciative of the Coast Guard being there. You know you have help now. You know you're gonna be okay. There's no words to describe how glad you are when you see them show up. There's just no way to do that, you know. You're pretty damn ecstatic. You know, yeah.